Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Megan.
And I'm Sierra. We are back with another book video. For today's video, Megan and I are going to be talking about some books to hopefully get you out of a reading slump.
So the things that make it so it's a good book to get out of a reading slump is that it needs to be not too long, because there's a lot of great books, but if they're like pushing 400 plus pages, like I don't think it's the best.
Trust me, I would love to recommend 11/22/63, but an 850 page book is not going to get you out of a slump.
And then second of all, it needs to be a fast-paced book. And then I also feel like you don't want the book to be too predictable. You want there to be some twists and turns, or at least like some level of like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, so I think that most of the books we're going to be sharing are either mysteries or thrillers or romance, because that tends to fall into the categories of books that we like to read, and also just like it
I feel like it fits the
plot twist and stuff that you need, or like romance has like you're reading for them to get together. Like it's just an easy, quick
like I've been
read.
reading some general fiction lately, and while the books are sometimes enjoyable, like I don't think that they'd be like the book I would pick up next to get out of a reading slump. Like I just read Tomorrow, and I just read Daisy Jones and the Six, and I gave them both 4 stars, but they weren't like, I wasn't flying through them. So these books we went through pretty quickly. Okay, I think we've maybe mentioned this book in a video before, like on the podcast or something like that.
I think we did a reading wrap up.
But this is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I flew through this book. I read it when we were in Hawaii, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. So essentially, the male character in this book founded a genetic matchmaking dating app, and so they ended up finding out that the main female character and the founder of the app are apparently soulmates, and so the book kind of just follows their story. They both kind of decide to proceed with testing this relationship out, and if they actually are soulmates. There's a couple twists in there, but nothing too crazy, but I did really enjoy this book for romance.
The reason I think this is a good book to get out of a reading slump is because, one, like Megan said, it's very fast and easy to get through, and like it doesn't dwell too much on like one particular subject or topic where you like feel like you're spending forever on this one point. It's very fast paced, going from point A to point B, and it's easy to follow along. And I also really enjoyed the banter between these characters, and they're just both very likable. Okay, the next book to get you out of a reading slump is The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth. Gonna be honest, I have to read the back of this book because it's been like a year and a half or something since I've read this. From the moment Lucy met her husband's mother, she knew she wasn't the wife Diana had envisioned for her perfect son. Exquisitely polite, friendly, and always generous, Diana nonetheless kept Lucy at arm's length despite her desperate attempts to win her over. And because she was a pillar of the community, an advocate for female refugees, and a woman happily married for decades, no one had a bad word to say about Diana, except for Lucy. That was 5 years ago. Now Diana is dead, a suicide note found in her body claiming that she no longer wanted to live because of the cancer wreaking havoc inside of her body. But the autopsy finds no cancer. It does find traces of poison and evidence of suffocation. Who could possibly want Diana dead? Why was her will changed at the 11th hour to disinherit both of her children and their spouses? And what does it mean that Lucy isn't exactly sad she's gone? Megan and I both read this one. I thought it was a really quick and easy thriller to get through, and just easy to get out of a reading slump.
It kind of also focuses on, there's obviously the daughter-in-law, and then her husband / the son of the woman that's killed. And then there's also the daughter and then a son-in-law that it focuses on too. And so they're all kind of, they don't have like the most clean-cut lives. Like they'll have kind of like these secrets that they're dealing with. And so I thought it was fun to try and figure out, okay, why do I think this person could have done it? Am I right or not? And I did not end up guessing or figuring out the twist before it was revealed in the book. And so when a book can do that, I always think
gotta give it some props.
Points. Next we have Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino, and Sierra and I both just read this recently actually.
Which is kind of funny because I feel like it's been making the rounds on Book Talk and BookTube for quite a while, and we just got to picking it up and reading it.
We both really like this book. I think we each read it in maybe like 2, 3, 4 days. What I love about this book, and I'm a sucker for all romances that do a dual POV, but I'm also a sucker for past and present a lot of the time. And this book, the whole first half, or most of the first half, was in the past, and then most of the second half of the book was in the present. And I thought both timelines were honestly just about equally as interesting. I know sometimes you prefer one over the other, or one timeline's more interesting than the other, but I really appreciated the development of the relationship between these two characters. And you get like a little sneak peek in the beginning of them like seeing each other again in the present day, and then like they don't see each other again, and then it does the flashback, and so you're wanting to get back to, well, you want to figure out what happened in the past, and then you also want to figure out like, okay, how are they going to find each other again moving forward, and it's only like it's around 300 pages, so it's pretty quick read and enjoyable.
Something else that I liked about this book was that while there is like a little bit of miscommunication, it's not like a true miscommunication trope, and things get resolved in that sense pretty quickly. And I just like the honesty between these characters and like how much they just both wanted to pursue this relationship. It was like no games, and I liked that because I was like, let's just cut to the chase and get to the relationship. So I enjoyed this one a lot. The next book is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This book was, I think, 5 stars for me. Was it 5 stars for you as well? So very good thriller, very fast paced. And what I liked about it was that there's like so much more going on than just like mystery thriller. There's subplots of romance and just like there's so many relationships between all these characters. So to tell you guys what it's about, there are 6 friends, and it focuses on the main character, Jessica Miller, as like kind of the person that we're mainly following throughout this story. And back when all these friends are in college, one of their friends is actually murdered, and another one of their friend group is, I can't remember if he was suspected to be the killer and like was tried and found not guilty or what the circumstances were, but you find that out pretty early on that like this one friend, people think that he killed her, but he's like, I didn't do it. And I think the friend group also doesn't really think that he did it either.
Like after college, they're not talking or communicating anymore. They all went their separate ways.
And so then 10 years later, we have them coming back to their university for a reunion, and while they're there, they kind of revisit all the strange things that might have happened on the night that their friend was murdered and try and figure out who was ultimately responsible. I thought this book had a lot of good twists and turns. I did not see the ending coming, and then like even you get to the end and you like figure out what happened, and like at the very end, there's like one other like last plot twist that you're like, oh my god, that was crazy.
Has dual POV to go back and forth between past and present timelines, so you start to fill in the gaps as you're also going through the reunion timeline. Next we have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is actually, I feel like, an underrated book, and like it is talked about, but I feel like not enough, because when we got this for Book of the Month, I like grabbed it because it was like the only, or one of the few romances that was in what we were sent, and I was like, you know, I love a good romance, so I'll read it. But like I flew through this book. It was so good. I definitely rated it at least 4 stars. But essentially the main character, she's driving home from somewhere, she's going through a small town, and then her car breaks down or has issues or something. And so this guy stops by and helps her out with her car. And then they end up hooking up, and she's like, I never do that with anyone. So then
she's like,
she leaves the next day, goes back to her town where she's from, and can't stop thinking about this guy, but she's like, my life is here in this big town. Like, that is not something I do. He is not the kind of guy I
small town, like, innkeeper.
They end up being forced to meet back up unintentionally on like a girls' trip that her friends planned, and she did not know that's where they were going. It was kind of like a forced proximity, but like her friends aren't supposed to know that she knows this guy, and the whole book is kind of about that. It's fun.
Lots of other drama going
hospital
on.
Doctor vibes because she's a doctor.
And this book is also dual POV, which you know we love. Okay, up next we have It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This one is just like such a fast read. I don't know like what is about Tessa Bailey's writing style or just the story in general, but like I read it and just like couldn't put it down. So it is about Piper Bellinger, who is just like this social media like kind of socialite in Los Angeles, but she is just going absolutely crazy spending her parents' money. And eventually her stepdad is like, okay, I'm cutting you off and you need to like learn some responsibility. So he sends her, and then her sister also kind of follows along to, where do they go?
Their dad's like old bar that they're supposed to like fix up or something.
Yeah, in Washington.
Because their dad passed away when they were younger, so they have to go to the town that he was from and where their mom was either originally from too, or I don't really know.
But they have to like learn some responsibility, and so their dad had this bar that now is kind of just like owned and run by the community, but like they're supposed to go in and fix it up and stuff. But they show up, obviously they're not the same as everyone else that lives in that area of Washington.
So they're kind of like, what are you two doing here?
Yeah, they're the outcasts.
They are, like, who do you think you are coming into our town?
And they also meet Brendan, who is a crab fisherman, and so obviously like this very like hardworking, like, you know, that kind of personality. Like. So initially him and Piper like don't get off on the best foot because he kind of just sees her as this person who's not someone he would get along with. And they slowly realize that they might get along better than they would expect. And what I appreciate about this book is that while they initially don't get along, they don't like hold that against each other for too long, at least in my opinion. I feel like they do a good job of like trying to learn more about each other.
And it's because I feel like Piper as a character develops a little bit more. Like the whole reason she's there, she actually does start to like learn a little bit more responsibility and care a little bit more about other people. And so when she's making those developments, it's easier for Brendan to get along with her, and so it kind of actually like makes sense why they start to get along.
And I think this book is dual POV as well.
Okay, and then I have a Kindle Unlimited book that I read, and it is, let me look at the author. So it's The Infinity Between Us by N.S. Perkins, and I had come across this when I was looking for books similar to Love and Other Words and Every Summer After, and I do think this book is another good follow-up if you're looking for something that's kind of similar. So essentially the main character Violet is having to go back to this lake house that her family and another family owned, like, and they used to spend like all their summers there together, but then like she hadn't been there in a couple years, I think since she went to college, because there was a falling out between the two families. And so you kind of don't know what the fallout was, but she's going back. They're trying to get ready to sell the house, and she shows up, and the son of the other family / like they had a relationship right before things went sour, also ends up being there, and she had no idea that he was going to be there as well, because they both own the house together. So now he's kind of like, well, I'm supposed to be trying to sell the house, and so she's kind of stuck there trying to figure that out. And so he's got this idea of like, he doesn't want to sell the house actually. He wants to keep the house. She wants to sell the house. And so he's like, let me convince you like why this house is so great, and like you stay here for the summer and I'll like remind you of why this house is so great. And so she kind of agrees, because she also like wants to push off, like she's supposed to be going to do an internship she doesn't really want to do, so she's like, it's the perfect excuse to like not have to worry about that. And so she's going into it though of like, I'm just gonna stay here and I'm not gonna communicate with this guy at all, like I decided to stay in the house. But slowly, of course, the forced proximity, they start to realize why they were in a relationship before. The book cuts back and forth between past and present as well, so you're starting to figure out what exactly was going on in the past and what led up to the big fallout between the families. And yeah.
Okay, and then the last book that I have to recommend is also a book that I read on Kindle Unlimited, and it is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. So this story follows Millie Calloway, and she is trying to find a new job, and because she has a criminal record, it's hard to get a good job. And so she was lucky enough to get a housemaid position for the Winchester family. They're just like very wealthy, and during the interview process, she really wants this job because the mom is just so nice, and all she really has to do is just take care of the house and then help out with their daughter as she's needed. She gets the job, and then Nina just does a complete 180, trashes the house all the time, is incredibly rude to Millie, and Millie's just like, what on earth is going on? Like, how did this happen? But she can't really change jobs because no one else is gonna hire her. And so as time progresses, she's still trying to figure out why Nina just flipped a switch so quickly, but she's also kind of developing a crush on Nina's husband, Andrew, and she's like, I can't have a crush on him, like he's my boss. Things progress, and eventually something happens that's a crazy twist, and that's why I'm gonna leave this because I don't want to spoil anything. But very quick read. I don't remember how many pages there was. I think it was like 300 or something, but I read it in like less than 24 hours.
Well, those were all of the books that we had thought of to get you out of a reading slump. If you guys enjoyed this video, then make sure you give it a thumbs up and let us know what other book-specific videos you guys might want in the future. And also check out the other book videos we've already made on this channel. We've done some reading wrap-ups. We've also done, if you've read this book, you might like this book. We have 2 of those videos.
Also, if you have any books that you've read that you think could help people get out of a reading slump, especially if it's other genres that we didn't cover in this video, definitely comment those down below. And we'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!